Hi there, and welcome to another episode of the Bike Catalogue. This week I'm looking at how to replace the chain rings on your chain set. Now you might need to do this because they've become worn out, and that's when they might start looking a bit like shark's teeth and the grooves are really deep. That's quite an obvious sign you need to replace them. Or perhaps you want to try some different size chain rings. Today I'm going to be showing you on this, it's a slightly older Ultegra model, but it's the 68000, but the principle remains the exact same for whatever chain rings you're changing pretty much. Now, you only need a handful of tools to be able to do this, which is really good. For this model, I need a T30 Torx key, 5mm Allen key, Shimano Holotech removal tool, flathead screwdriver, and some grease. Now, the first thing you're going to do is working on the non-drive side of the crank. So, as you would usually look at it, your cranks would be on the right hand side of the bike as they're spinning. So that's your drive side, and we're working on the non-drive side. A useful acronym you may see online if you're looking up at these things is NDS. That stands for non-drive side. So the first job you're going to do is take your 5mm Allen key and undo the bolts on either side of the crank arm. Now do this just until they feel loose, but you don't need to unscrew them all the way out. Take your Shimano Holotech removal tool, and there's a small little hole on that crank arm, and your tool fits neatly into it. Then it's just a job of turning it to undo, and that comes off just like that. Then you'll use your flathead screwdriver, and that just pops a small little pin at the top. It's a little catch. That means you can then slide off the crank arm and you're left with it like this. Now if this was actually on your bicycle, at that point you'd be able to slide the crank arm off the frame, and then you'd be able to access your chain set. So that's what it's then going to look like. This is a good opportunity as well just to inspect your inner chainring to see how that's going for wear. Also, good opportunity to really give it a good clean out and wipe and just make sure everything's nice and tidy. I'd already done that, hence I can use it without getting oil and dirt all over my hands. So for this Shimano model, it's where you need your T30 Torx key, and that's where you fit them into the bolts in the back of the chainring, and you can undo them. Now it's useful just to take note before you take them off. Just remember what positions the chain rings are, because you want to make sure that you're putting, whether it be the new ones or you're just replacing these because you want to clean them out, in the exact same position. You'll see your inner chain ring has a small little notch just on the inside here. See if I can catch that, like just in the underside there. And you want that to line up with your crank arm. Also, to work out which way is the correct way, there should be some markings as to what size the tooth the chain ring is, and you also want that facing towards the frame. So once you're here and you've taken all your bolts off, the inner chain ring should come off just like that. Put that down to one side. Then you'll be left with your outer chain ring. Again, this should just be able to slide off the front, and you can pull it apart. And that is how you remove your chain rings from the crank arm. With your chain rings ready to put back onto the crank arm, it's a good opportunity just to re-grease all the bolts and any plates that are touching the crank arm, just to make sure there aren't any creaks that may occur when you get riding. So, just with a little bit of grease, I like to just dab a bit on the inside, and then also you can either do this on the threads of your screws as you put them back in, or just add a touch in on the inside of each bolt. Slide it through and match it up like so, and that snaps into place there and it looks ready to go. We then take our inner chain ring, and remembering we spoke about the small little excess that sticks out on the inner chain ring, that's what goes in behind the crank arm, and we want to be able to see want to be able to see the numbers on the chainring facing towards us. So that's what we need here. That slides over the top, and you can then press them together. Now, you're going to have to hold them both together on either side of the chainrings, otherwise they might slip apart. As you take one of your bolts, press it in, and tighten up. There we go. Now they're all together, you can go around tightening them all up. Now it's important at this stage, try and work in opposite corners. It just means then that way you're tightening the whole plate, the chainrings up evenly, and you're not going to have it particularly wonky on one side or the other. Excellent. The next job you want to do from here to make sure that they're all tightened up correctly is ideally use a torque wrench and follow the exact specifications that each model shows. You can slightly eyeball it if you'd like, and you can just go until you feel like it's pretty tight in there, which is okay, but ideally you want to have an actual torque wrench to be able to do it precisely and ensure that there's going to be absolutely no creaks. So let me just finish tightening this up. So you then have your chain rings back on. Now it may be that there's a little bit of grease that's just come out, so you can wipe that off and your chain ring looks like new again. So you're then going to want to put this back on your bicycle. So you would thread that through the drive side of the bike, which would leave this slightly serrated edge poking out the other side. Take your crank arm, and this is where it's best again, just add a bit of grease around the outside of the thread there, and also just on the inner part of the chainring. They're the two parts that are going to be touching your bearings on your bottom bracket, so they're the bits that you actually want to make sure are greased up and there's going to be no creaking. So the joy of Shimano cranks is you can't accidentally position them so that they're in that you're not exactly your 12 and 6 o'clock. So once you're in this position, you can then slide them on like so, then pop down the catch. With your Shimano Holotech removal tool, you can now insert the item back in, and that's only ever done up to finger tight. Never go any more, it doesn't need to be. Then with your 5mm Allen key, tighten both those up on either side. So there you have it. That's how you take off your cranks off your bike and replace the chain rings. A really simple job, but really, really worthwhile to do. If you've got any questions, please put them down in the comments below and I'll try and answer all of them. But otherwise, best of luck trying it at home. It's not difficult, you can do it, and it's absolutely worth it.